Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of System Shock Radio. I, as always, am your host, Nigel, and we are going to get started today. So, as per usual, we are going to get started with the answer to last week's riddle. So, here we go. So, last week's riddle was this: a bus driver and a doctor are in love with the same woman. The bus driver leaves for a 7-day business trip. So, he leaves the wife with seven apples. Not the wife, the woman. I don't know why I wrote down wife. Um, why? So, one more time. A bus driver and a doctor are in love with the same woman. The bus driver leaves for 7 days. He's on a 7-day business trip, and he decides to leave the woman 7 apples. Why? And to answer that one, it's pretty simple. It's kind of funny, actually, because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. All right. Um, Now on to a bit more of a serious yet lighthearted topic. Um, of course, if you have been living under a rock, you know that we are in the middle of a pandemic with the coronavirus and everything. But I've got some good news. So many people have been recovering from it. I'm talking in the thousands. People have been recovering from it, and even some people who are staying at home in quarantine. A lot of people, including some of my friends, are getting some stuff done. They're realizing some stuff about themselves because they're not surrounded by the outside world and they're staying in quarantine. So while this pandemic definitely does suck, there is a bit of a good side to it. And it was something that I kind of mentioned in my rated N page, is that find the good even in the bad situations. In every bad situation, there's at least some good. And I guess that's the good coming out of this one, this horrible situation. But um, for those who are in quarantine and do want to keep themselves occupied, and I of course have this page, this podcast of mine, and my other two pages, my rated page, my poetry page, or even do something else. Read a book, maybe draw, paint something. But keeping yourself occupied during this quarantine will definitely help you out a lot, and it's something that I've kind of been learning to do since the colleges are shut down. So keeping yourself occupied is fantastic to do to prevent you from going crazy. But next we're going to move on to a sort of the inspirational part of this, and this one is don't judge a book by its cover. Now that sounds super cliche, and to be honest, it kind of is, but it's important because of the weight that that phrase carries by it. So when you hear "don't judge a book by its cover," someone says, "Hey, you don't judge a book by its cover," they usually mean don't look at something and judge it just by how you look at it. Because oftentimes when you do that, that's when you miss out on it because it could be something really good and you missed out on it because you judged it without getting to know the whole story of it. And this applies with, I say it because this applies with people, this applies to certain things. This could apply with certain books. Like there's books that I've read the title of, I'm like, not really interested in that one based off the title alone. Oh, and yes, I'm guilty of it myself. But then I pick it up and read it. I'm like, you might as well go and read it. And some of them have been the best books I ever read. So truly never judge a book by its cover. Not everyone seems the way they are from a distance. Like some people from a distance may look nice, friendly, promising, but on the inside they aren't at all. That's happened to me way too many times. Of course, I work in retail, so that's happened plenty of times. Even people you see out in the street, and or people that your friends may know, you see them and they look super nice or even super mean, and you talk to them because you feel like talking to them, feel like striking up some conversation, and they turn out to be the complete opposite. So that's why you never have to you never should judge a book by its cover. Never, ever. So, uh, oftentimes another reason we don't like to talk to things or people or whichever interact with things or people that may seem uh friendly or mean is because when we see them, we've already got this sort of preconceived notion set up like this doesn't look good. Now, some things you're right about. Some people look mean, they actually are mean. Some people look nice, they actually are nice. But never go and assume, because assuming always is a bit of a two-sided coin. Either you end up being right or you end up being wrong. And when you're wrong, sometimes you're really wrong. So that's why don't judge a book by its cover. Always get to know something or someone. All right. Moving on to the next topic, and this topic is actually a poll I have set up for this episode. If you have or have not noticed, there's a poll set up for this episode, and that is, what is the greatest video game of all time? Now, for those of you who've been a part of this podcast for a while, first of all, thank you. Second of all, this is kind of the part where I talk about nerd stuff. So if you don't want to hear the nerd stuff, come back in a few minutes, and I promise I'll talk about something else. But this is the nerd stuff part of the podcast. So, my personal favorite video game of all time is Spyro the Dragon. It's colorful, it's imaginative. If the collectibles, which are the gems, are easy to collect, the music is really good. The music is composed by Stuart Copeland, who was the drummer for the band The Police. So that's why Spyro's my favorite. A lot of people, when you ask a lot of people, hey, what do you think the greatest video game of all time? One of the cliche answers from a lot of people will be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and honestly, it's hard to argue with them on that. At almost everything about that game is perfect. Some people will say Super Mario 64. Some people will say Metal Gear Solid. It all is up to people and how people interpret things, and that's actually pretty cool to see so many different viewpoints. Some people, of course, like myself, say Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, probably God of War, or Disney Infinity, even perhaps Epic Mickey, Super Mario Galaxy, maybe Sonic the Hedgehog. It's all up to interpretation. So that's why I have a poll set up. If you guys could respond to that, let me know what your favorite video game is, or if you don't play video games, then that's perfectly fine. But now moving on to the next topic, and this is going to be the final topic of the day, and then I'm going to leave you with your rail. So not going to be for you long today, but learning a language, learning a different language other than your own can sometimes be pretty cool. It's not always going to be easy, but oftentimes it can be pretty cool. And for a lot of reasons, for starters, when you learn a different language, you kind of also learn the culture behind that language as well. Don't just learn the language and just language. Also, if you're going to learn a different language, then sort of delve into the culture of that language, why they pronounce things a certain way, sort of the history of the region or country that you're learning the language of. And oftentimes it's fascinating. It's very fascinating. And oftentimes when you learn a different language, you kind of have that aha light bulb moment. Like, is this what it's like for people who aren't native English speakers to learn English? Because for a lot of people here in the United States, taking speaking English fluently, which is the language we were born with, that we grew up with, taking it for granted, sort of, that we know this language, is kind of a bad habit to do. And this is kind of the wake up call, like, oh, maybe this language is a little hard to learn. But since we're natively speaking it, we don't often realize how hard it would be for those who don't really speak English to learn the language. But learning a different language sort of gives you that aha moment. And I love that aha moment because it makes me appreciate not only their culture and their language, but even my culture and my language more. Comparing similarities and differences between cultures is oftentimes fun, and that's one of many reasons why it's cool to learn a different language. And even if you study a language for a while and you travel to that country, let's say you're learning Spanish and you travel to Spain, and it could be fascinating and you could be able to communicate with the locals. Now, I'm not necessarily saying be fluent in it, but oftentimes if you study it for a while, you can know enough to where it would seem like you're fluent enough in it. But that is about it for today. So I'm going to leave you all with next week's riddle. And next week's riddle is this. It's a very simple one. Why can't a man living in New York be buried in Chicago? Let's read that one again. Why can't a man living in New York be buried in Chicago? That is going to be your riddle for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And respond to the poll. Let me know in the comments how you appreciated. If you did appreciate today's video, oh, definitely leave a comment. And if you enjoyed today's video, leave a comment, leave a like, a reaction, all that fun stuff, because that definitely means a lot to me. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all later. Peace.